This position is the place where the spine is designed to be loaded in compression. Okay? When you carry heavy weights around, it's designed to be an extension like this. Okay? And if you put it into flexion, put the lumbar spine into flexion, then the discs are loaded in a way that is not geometrically satisfying. All right? Everybody see that? So when you load, when you squat and deadlift, you need to learn how to keep the low back in extension. Okay? Right now, flexion is not a particularly dangerous position in which to pull. If it were real dangerous, everybody'd be dead, wouldn't they? Because everybody's picked something up off the floor in flexion, right? How do you pick up a big 300-pound stone?
With a round bag.
If you're a strong man, you're going to have to pull it with a round bag. Because you can't get in that position because it's not a barbell. It doesn't fit over the middle of your foot. You're going to have to accommodate the shape of that big stone with a little bit of lumbar flexion. As long as you hold it still, it's not that big a deal. Our backs are not particularly sensitive to being loaded in flexion. It's not the best position, right? And you'll notice that nobody's ever picked up a 700-pound stone. But you can deadlift 1,000 pounds. I don't mean you, I mean like one can deadlift 1,000 pounds. It's been done on a barbell because the barbell allows you to put the load directly over the midfoot and to set the back in extension. Okay? An extended spine is the best for force transfer. All right? It's also the best for spinal safety.
When you say the spine in extension, are you talking about the lumbar part?
I'm talking about the whole damn thing.
Okay.
Because remember, this kyphotic curve is also referred to as extension. All right? So this is extension. All right? That's flexion. This would be thoracic flexion. All right? But if I'm standing up straight, I'm in extension. That's what the term means. Okay? So when you squat, you would like to squat with your back in extension. You want to deadlift with your back in extension and clean with it in extension and press with it in extension. Because the back likes to be loaded in normal anatomical position. That's where the load is carried. The compressive load and the moment load is also carried that way too. Okay? Because if you'll think about loading the spine in moment, what you've got really is a beam stress problem. You've got tension across the top and compression across the bottom like a loaded beam does. Okay? So that's, need to get an engineer to explain that to me. I'll get somebody to write a paper on that for us, for the website. Make a note of that, okay? All right? So extension is where you'd like to stay when you squat. All right? But as it turns out, a lot of people do not know how to produce a hard, stable, extended low back. 14-year-old boys are terrible about this. All of our 14-year-old kids out here just bend over in a floppy noodle and just bend over with their low back round and everything. And then you got to spend time yelling at them, and Rusty's thought of clever ways to try to teach them how to do that. But the default position is they just bend over and pick it up with their low back round. It has to be taught, especially to kids. But there are a lot of people that have never thought about it. I have seen pretty good lifters that did not know how to voluntarily extend the lumbar spine. Now let me show you what I mean by that, okay? I want you to watch my back. All right, I'm standing here in extension. Note the curve in my low back. All right? Now watch what I'm about to do. Everybody see that? This is extension. This is overextension. That anatomical position is past extension, past normal anatomical extension. It's called overextension. How did I produce that movement?
Concentric.
I did a concentric lumbar erector contraction. I did a concentric lumbar erector contraction. All right? If you don't know how to do a concentric lumbar erector contraction, listen carefully, then you are not going to be able to hold an isometric extension under a load in a hip flexion position. You understand what I mean by that? All right. Now don't get on Facebook and tell everybody that Rippetoe said you're supposed to overextend your spine when you squat and deadlift, because that's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I said was that if you do not know how to make your muscles, the muscles that control your lumbar spine, contract concentrically, then you're not going to be able to hold them in isometric contraction when the weight gets real heavy, or when the position gets tough to get into at the start position of a deadlift. Okay? And the fact is that there's 3 or 4 guys in this room right now that don't know how to do that with their low back. Now, interestingly enough, the girls all know how to do this. I think I've seen one female over the past 20 years that couldn't produce a voluntary lumbar extension like that, because that's a normal female posture. Y'all figure out how to do that when you're about 12, I think. All right? But the boys have problems with this. There are 3 or 4 guys in this room that have never done what I just did. That have never done that voluntarily. All right? And guys like that, when they deadlift, they're just relying on squeeze to keep it all together. But it's much more efficient if you learn that the lumbar erectors set the lordotic curve, and then all of this muscle mass around it produces hoop tension and reinforces the position set by the lumbar erectors. So what we're going to do is show you how to do that muscle contraction.